video. This is one of our, and he uses the infrared camera. All of our inspectors use the infrared camera, but Scott is great at capturing it on video. And so there's a lot to be learned from this.
This is the camera that I go around with. It's the Hike Micro M30. And just to show you how sensitive this thing is, you know, if I just place my hand on the wall just briefly, it's going to heat it up just slightly, and then it sticks out like a sore thumb. So it really picks up even the smallest amount of temperature differentials. So we use it to look for any leaks after running water. So this is a brand new home, about $2 million from a high-end builder. And we just got done running all the water. And if we scan below this bathroom, we can see these cold spots, which if we look at it, the ceiling looks flawless. There's no way that you would notice that with a naked eye. So we'll have to set up the ladder to verify if it is moisture or if it is just a cold spot. All right, so we got the ladder set up and hitting the spot, 100% moisture, so no question, that is an active leak. So without a doubt, you do need a good infrared camera, and home buyers, when you're looking for a home inspector, make sure that they do have one.
Okay, so some things that are really important about that video. I hope you saw how sensitive the camera is, that he placed his hand on the wall for like 5 seconds, and the infrared camera was able to sense that that's where his hand was. When we first got our infrared camera, Rob would send our kids and they would make a path through, they would run through the house, and it was his job to find out where they stepped based on their little footprints on the carpet. And that was like a game they would play. But there were some other really important things in that video that I want to make sure we talk about. First, infrared camera, it shows heat or cool as a color. It shows up as a color, and we use it as a qualitative. So we have to confirm it, and we're comparing one thing to another, but it doesn't tell us definitively things. And you're going to see that on the next video that I'm going to show you. And you might have noticed that he saw that leak in the ceiling, and he didn't just say, oh, that is definitely a water leak. He set up his ladder and he got a moisture meter to confirm that's a water leak. And we're going to talk about why that was that he confirmed that. Surfaces are cooler when they're wet due to the condensation of the water. And that's how we can see the water with the infrared camera. And the difference in color tells us what to test with a moisture meter. So it's really important that we confirm what we see in the camera with a moisture meter. So going to the next slide. So some limitations with the infrared camera. You see in this picture up here that we see all this purple and pink in that room. So we know that there's something going on there, and it kind of would give us the idea looking at it that, oh, that could be a water leak from the ceiling. But in all actuality, this is not a water leak from the ceiling. That area up there was actually not insulated. So a lack of insulation can also look like a water leak. That's why it's so important that you confirm it with your moisture meter. So the IR camera tells us about a temperature difference, not what is happening. So it doesn't actually always mean that that's water. Anomalies have to be confirmed with the moisture. They must be confirmed with the moisture meter. And then an example is this leaky air duct could be leaking cold air behind the wall. It would look like it's wet. So, you know, that leaky duct could make it look like there's water behind the wall. And then the temperature differential is required. So this is really interesting in that if we were to be inside a house and maybe it's 70 degrees outside and it's 70 degrees inside, that means the outside and the inside temperature are the exact same. We might not see a water leak on those days. We need the outside and the inside to be different temperatures for things to show up. So cold outside, hot inside, or hot outside, cold inside is really going to help us to see things. But when it's the same exact temperature, it makes it a lot harder to find anything with the infrared camera. And if you guys have any questions while I'm going through this, just unmute yourself and ask away or raise your digital hand, whatever you're more comfortable with. You can also type it in the chat. If you put something in the chat, Michaela or she will see it and let me know there's a question there. But please ask questions if you have any. And really important, sometimes people think that we can see through the walls with the infrared camera. We can't actually see through walls. It's not like Superman and X-ray vision. What it helps us to see is if there's a temperature change through the wall. So here is another video. It's just about a minute long, but this really shows some great things that we can do with the infrared camera.
So we're doing an inspection on a house that was just recently renovated. One thing that I always do on a newly renovated house is I'll fill up the shower pans with water to see if they actually put a pan underneath the tile. So I'll plug this drain and I put about a ½ inch of water in the pan and I let that sit for a good 15 minutes or so. And then I'll go around with the infrared camera, scan below, scan around the sides and look for any water that has leaked out of the pan. And in this case, we've got the infrared camera. We can see a little hot mark at the floor right next to the toilet. Just looking at it, things look good, but if we actually like push on this, we can see water actually shoots out. And then coming over here on the other side of the shower stall, it's right behind this wall here. Doing the infrared scan, we can see all that water is just leaking underneath this vinyl floor in here. There's a lot of water that's just sitting underneath this. So that's really a critical test on any shower that has a tile floor in it. They have to have a little rubber pan that goes underneath. So if water does get past the tile, it can still end up in the drain rather than just leaking out all over the place. Very common thing I find on recently flipped houses. So always test that shower pan.
Okay, so, you know, we may not have seen that otherwise if we didn't have that infrared camera to see that that water was coming underneath the floor in the room next to the shower. So super important. So one of the things that we make very standard on our home inspection is after we have run the water, we scan the ceiling of the room below the kitchen and below the baths, because sometimes water leaks, you look and it looks fine, but then when you scan it with that infrared camera, you'll see that there's a leak there. It just hasn't had time to make a stain on the ceiling. So we scan under the kitchens and the baths. We scan ceilings and whenever possible, and always the flat roof ceiling. So if there's a flat roof, we want to scan that ceiling because sometimes we can't get onto that flat roof, but the infrared camera is going to let us know if that flat roof is leaking. And then basement walls. Obviously, basement moisture is something that's super common because, it's a basement and eventually they do leak. And it helps us to do our job faster. Like we could probably find all that moisture with with our moisture meter in the basement, but just scanning and then confirming takes it a lot quicker. And so it just helps us to find things and to find it faster. So some other uses is here you can see we scanned an electrical panel and we found hot spots in the wiring. So that's another thing that we do with the infrared camera. You can use the infrared camera for looking for missing insulation. So I'm sorry, wet areas. We've talked about wet areas, potentially dangerous electrical problems. Areas of missing insulation. Now, this isn't something that we do on a home inspection. The infrared camera is great at it, but we think that you can't ask the sellers to re-insulate their whole entire house. It's like buying an old car and saying, hey, by the way, can you put airbags in this? That's just not the way it was built. And you can't expect them to make those updates as they hand over that property. So missing insulation is something that we don't comment on with our infrared camera. And air leaks, another great thing that the infrared camera can do, but it is not included in what we do in the inspection. And I have a list of what we're using our camera for. But locate framing hid behind walls. Sometimes, somebody might want to knock down a wall and they're not sure what, are the 2x4s, how far are they spaced? Is there a support beam in there? And we can come through with the infrared camera and help them locate framing behind the walls. So our policy is a better inspection using the IR camera. We use it on every inspection. It makes for a faster inspection because we don't have to walk around with the moisture meter everywhere. The camera does it quicker. It helps us to find things that other people might walk past, and it helps protect our clients, and it reduces the risk for the realtors and the sellers in addition to ourselves reducing the risk. And I threw these pictures in here because you can see in this top photo that ceiling looks just fine, but when we scanned it with the infrared camera, you can see all of that moisture that's right there in that ceiling. And then again, right here, you can see the moisture leak in that ceiling. When we input an infrared picture in the report, a lot of times we put the visible light photo there so that it tells the story a little better and helps you understand exactly what area it is that we're talking about. I saw there was something in the chat. Yes, these videos are really great for a demo. I agree with you. Scotty, one of our inspectors, he's like kind of like TikTok famous. So if you ever want to go on TikTok, he has some amazing inspection videos on there of other things that he's found on inspections and just different uses that he has with the infrared camera. So here I put this in because I wanted to show a few other uses for it. Radiant heat flooring. That's sometimes really hard to identify if your radiant heat is working in the flooring. And it's very easy to use the infrared camera to identify. We've come out to help people because sometimes they know something's not working, but they don't know where. And we can help pinpoint where that radiant heat is failing in the floor. And then this other picture shows a plumbing leak. You can see over on the side where this yellow spot on the ground is where the water is leaking in that plumbing pipe. And I believe if there had been a clog in this plumbing pipe, we would have even seen where that was. So sometimes it'll help with that. The question in the chat was, does it help with detecting mold under the carpet? It won't exactly see mold, but usually for there to be mold, well, not usually, there has to be moisture for that mold to happen. And if it's actively wet under the carpet, it's going to show that to us if there's any active wetness. And so that a lot of times will point that finger at mold. I hope that helps. So here is a leak in a wall that we found. So you can see this wall looks just fine, but in the infrared camera, you've got that purple that lets us know that, hey, there's something going on there. And then we tested it, of course, with a moisture meter, and then there was a leak there. Some of the benefits of this is it makes you look good. It helps find problems before the transaction is complete, because a lot of times, you know, if there's no water stain yet, like right here, that ceiling looks gorgeous, but you can see there's a lot of water up there. That water stain is going to eventually show up, and then everybody gets upset, of course, because nobody wants an issue when they've just bought a property. So it helps us to find things before that transaction closes. It limits the issues that you might find on your final walkthrough, because maybe that stain has showed up, and when you go back, you know, 30 days later for your final walkthrough, then there's an issue. And it's easy to identify the scope of the problem. Sometimes, you know, you'll be able to say there's a leak or there's something going on here, but you can't quite say how big of the issue is this, where is this issue coming from? And the infrared camera allows us to identify those problems that could potentially take a lot of issues. Let's see. It sets you apart as a highly professional and somebody recommending a company that uses state-of-the-art equipment. And it can make you a hero for your clients. There's a question in the chat that says, if the infrared reading depends on temperature differential, is it only effective to detect leak indoors? Can it be used on a leak on the exterior of the property? Great question. We do use the infrared to look at issues with EIFS. So I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with EIFS, but that's exterior insulated finishing system. And it looks like that stucco on a house, and it can have a lot of problems. We do have to time it at the right time of the day. I believe for using the infrared on EIFS, it has to be first thing in the morning or at the end of the day, because once the sun has warmed up that water, then it's not going to show anything. But if we come first thing in the morning or at the end of the day when it's starting to cool off or when it's starting to heat up, then it would show those leaks on the exterior. So great question. But that is another service that we do with the IR camera is scan to see leaks for in the EIFS. And that was all the questions that I had, or slides that I have to show you. But there's so many things. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. So many things that we can do with the infrared camera that just really help the inspection to run smoother. But, you know, just to always remember that it isn't seeing behind the walls, that it's actually sensing that change in temperature. So the things that we are always using it on, like I mentioned, I wanted to make sure that it was clear, is that water. So we're using it water under the bathrooms floor and under the kitchen floor. We're using it to look for water in the basement, and then water at ceiling type leaks. And then we're using it for hot spots in the electric. If we take the cover off the electrical panel and it looks like spaghetti in there, we're going to scan that to see, you know, like what's going on there. And the inspector always has that camera with him. And if, you know, we can ever use it in a situation, they'll always pull that out to see, like, hey, is there anything that I can find with my infrared camera? It just makes things go smoother and faster. You know, the infrared camera is pretty amazing. One time our daughter fell when she was little, and we took a picture of her with the infrared camera. And when you break a bone, heat goes to that area right away. And we could see that she broke her collarbone. And we took her to the doctor and we were like, she broke her collarbone. And he was like, you know, she might have just fell down. And I'm like, no, it's broken. And he was like, how do you know this? And we told him it was the infrared camera. And of course, he took x-rays and he was like, you guys are right. So it was kind of a neat thing, you know, that we were able to sense that with the infrared camera. Sometimes other uses is if you have a client that has a plumbing leak and no one can identify where that plumbing leak is coming from. Sometimes that just happens. Like there's water and nobody can pinpoint where that water is coming from. We go out to the property and we'll use the infrared camera and help the plumbers identify where that leak is actually happening, because that can be pretty frustrating when you know there's water and you don't want to cut open your whole entire ceiling trying to figure out, you know, where is the source of this water. That's another use for the camera that can be super, super helpful. Do you guys have any questions for me on infrared cameras or the use of them? Okay. Well, if you want to stay on and ask me any questions, that would be awesome. I'll just end with, you know, this is a picture of our ProTech team. We do serve Maryland, DC, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. And, you know, we're just known for answering the phones and then helping you get your inspections scheduled. Last month, we just did a webinar on chimney inspections. That's our newest service that we just added on to our list of services is chimney inspections. And I am always here to answer questions for you. We've been doing these webinars monthly, and we'll make sure that we post this onto our website so that if you ever are wondering about any of our services or to go back to see any of the old webinars, they'll be on the website. And we look super forward to seeing you guys in the new year. I have a few questions in the chat. What do we charge for the infrared camera? Great question. It's free with every inspection. So when you schedule an inspection with us, we do the infrared for free. It's just included. It's something that we feel like it just gives a better experience, and it helps us to make sure that we're taking care of our clients in the best way that we can. Yes, all of our services are listed on the website. It's pretty much, we do about any service that you need, or we make sure that we help you get that scheduled. So if there's something you need done, I'd be surprised if we don't take care of that at ProTech. Which model do you recommend and the cost? So Marco, our cameras run about $2,000. I know that the link was put above for Scotty's TikTok videos. You can look in his videos. He talks in several of them about which cameras he likes and what the benefits are of the different ones. FLIR is a big brand that we have used, and then I think our new one that we're using right now is Hikama, I believe it's called, and it's we switched to that brand because during COVID, we just couldn't get FLIRs, and we actually like this new brand a lot. And you'll see that in Scott's videos. But the cameras do run about $2,000. And we have to take pretty good care of them. You can't leave them in your vehicles. Not that you should, because they're really expensive piece of equipment to leave in the car, but they can't be getting hot and cold. They just don't operate. So the same goes for our mold sampling equipment. The guys at the end of the day, they have to haul all of this stuff into their house. They can't leave their equipment in their car overnight because the hot and the cold will mess it up and it won't work as well. Let's see, is there any other, did I get all those questions? Okay, oh, yep, she put the thing in there for Scott's TikTok videos if you wanted to see that again, Marco, on what that was. And I think I got to all the questions. So again, if you have questions and you want to hang out, please feel free. I hope that gave you some information about, what an infrared camera can do and why they're so helpful on home inspections, and some of the other uses that you can recommend for your clients to help them out. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and I look forward to hearing from you. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.